He's disgraced his father's legacy and the Trudeau name. That's going to be something that family has a burden on their shoulders in perpetuity. Trudeau's legacy will be that of the idiot king.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We've got a lot to talk about because the so-called idiot king himself finally decided to resign, but he didn't just resign and then prompt or trigger an election. He decided to resign and then prorogue parliament. Now, we are no longer just lame ducks, we are sitting ducks because nothing can happen while this prorogation is active. Now, typically, if you look at the Canadian encyclopedia here, it states that from 1980 to 2010, the average length of a prorogation in Canada was 22 days. And if we go by that standard, Parliament would have been returning when it was normally scheduled, around January 27, January 28th. However, Trudeau has decided to prorogue Parliament until March 24th. Now, March 27th, he's supposed to have a supply and confidence vote, so that would have been technically the furthest he could have prorogued Parliament. But it being scheduled for March 24th now means that is 77 days of prorogation. And for the guy who constantly bashes Harper for when he was in power, and back in 2009, Harper prorogued Parliament for 53 days. When they got back from that prorogation, this is what Trudeau said in the House of Commons back in 2010.
And the two prorogations in 2 years, the first to avoid a vote of non-confidence that would have surely brought this government down. The second, to avoid difficult questions. Anyone who disagrees with this government gets pushed aside. The challenge becomes that he gets to use every tribune he can use. All the media, all the voices, all the attention, and gets to further marginalize people who disagree with him. That's why we're talking about prorogation today.
Now, it sure seemed like Trudeau had a lot to say about it back then, but he doesn't seem to see the hypocrisy from what he was saying to his current actions, because his actions have big-time consequences. Him proroguing Parliament for 77 days now has Donald Trump breathing down our necks even more. This guy's going to be President-elect Donald Trump. He's going to be in power in the next 12 days. And if you remember about a month ago when Trudeau went to Mar-a-Lago to meet him, that's when the whole Canada becoming the 51st state started happening. And then there was these kind of tweets that we were getting, or X's, posts, whatever they're called, from Eric Trump showing his dad pretending he's on Amazon looking to buy Canada, Greenland, and the Panama Canal. However, he decided to have a press conference after Trudeau resigned in his house in Mar-a-Lago, and this is what he's currently saying.
You said you were considering military force to acquire Panama and Greenland. Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No, economic force. Because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like, and it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada.
Now, interestingly enough, Trump decided to give us what this artificial lines being removed would look like by posting on his Truth Social the United States and Canada and the U.S. as one. He also posted this one saying, "Oh Canada," the American flag postered over Canada and the U.S. combined as one. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to still look at this and say he's just joking around, he's being provocative, this and that. But throughout this press conference, he kept talking about changing it from the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. He also, if you remember from the previous photo we were just looking at with the Amazon cart, Greenland is on the list, and none other than his son flew to Greenland today with some other people like Charlie Kirk. Now, Greenland has put forward a statement saying they are still not for sale.
It's not just Canada. Trump refused to rule out using U.S. military force to retake the Panama Canal and seize Greenland, sending his son Don Jr. to the mineral-rich Danish territory.
Here as tourists, seeing it looks like an incredible place.
Government officials were clear Greenland is still not for sale. Trump threatening them too with tariffs if they don't hand over the island.
They should give it up because we need it for national security. That's for the free world. You look outside, you have China ships all over the place. You have Russian ships all over the place. We're not letting that happen.
But if Trump was able to somehow have Canada, the US, and Greenland all as one, it'd be pretty nuts. But let's just let him finish his little statement that he was making earlier.
But here's the problem with Canada. So many friends up there. I love the Canadian people. They're great. But we're spending hundreds of billions a year to protect it. We're spending hundreds of billions a year to take care of Canada. We lose in trade deficits. We're losing massive. We don't need their cars. You know, they make 20% of our cars. We don't need that. I'd rather make them in Detroit. We don't need the cars. We don't need their lumber. We have massive fields of lumber. We don't need their lumber. We have to unrestrict them because stupid people put, restrictions on, but I can do that with an executive order. We don't need anything they have. We don't need their dairy products. We have more than they have. We don't need anything. So why are we losing $200 billion a year and more to protect Canada? And I said that to, as I called him, Governor Trudeau. I said, listen, what would happen if we didn't subsidize you, if we didn't, because we give them a lot of money. We help them. As an example, we're buying icebreakers, and Canada wants to join us in the buying of icebreakers. I said, we don't really want to have a partner in the buying of icebreakers. We don't need a partner. But no right. Nope, no right. Here's what we have. We have a right not to help them with their financial difficulties because we owe $36 trillion too. We're going to start knocking it out pretty fast, but we're going to be able to do it because of energy and other things. But no right. No right. But why are we supporting a country, $200 billion plus a year? Our military is at their disposal. All of these other things, they should be a state.
Now, I'd have to disagree with Trump, and I'm sure many of you guys will as well. We don't need to become a state. As you can see behind me, we are very proud to be Canadians, and I will give him credit for admitting to the reporter saying that they don't have a right to lay claim to any of our land. However, he is also right saying that they don't have a right to support us, whether it be with our deficit or the military, anything like that. Now, the $200 billion that he's talking about, I'm going to be under the impression that that's just the basic trading that happens between the two countries, so I don't know if that's really support. But if we take a look at the responses from the political leaders in our country, Justin Trudeau's was not good, and he's been getting flamed in the comments ever since. He wrote, "There isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada would become part of the United States. Workers and communities in both our countries benefit from being each other's biggest trading and security partner." Elon Musk right away said, "Girl, you're not the governor of Canada anymore, so it doesn't matter what you say." This guy, Trump, probably has a higher approval rating from Canadians than you do. This guy making fun of Trudeau's speech. "Everyone knows I'm a fighter," while he says he says while he's quitting. Very true. There's other people saying, "Pack your bags, we're sending you back to Cuba." And even AI photos of the Canadian maple leaf now within the US flag. Yet now, if we turn to the CBC, who are addressing these claims by Trump, they are so reluctant to bring up Pierre Poilievre's tweet. He knows he has to, the anchor, even though he doesn't want to. But then you also see Rosemary Barton try to basically disparage what Pierre wrote. Take a look here.
They don't essentially have a military. They have a very small military. They rely on our military. It's all fine, but, they got to pay for that.
Donald Trump ramps up his verbal attacks on Canada. The incoming U.S. president says he plans to use economic force to essentially erase the border between the two countries. Let's talk more about this with the CBC's chief political correspondent, Rosemary Barton. She joins me live in Ottawa. And, just on that last point, Rosie, I think we should just kind of point out, I didn't point it out, Pierre Poilievre pointed it out, saying that for Trump to say that Canada doesn't have a military, Canada does have a military, but it is smaller than the United States.
Of course.
But, and I'm just going to read a little bit of it, because he says, Canada will never be the 51st state, period. We are a great and independent country. We are the best friend to the U.S. We spent billions of dollars and hundreds of lives helping Americans retaliate against Al-Qaeda's 9/11 attacks. And of course, and he goes on to say other things, but I think that point should be, or Pierre Poilievre thinks that point should be underscored, right? In terms of after 9/11, when the U.S., not Iraq, but when the U.S. went into Afghanistan, Canada was stationed in the Kandahar region, in one of the most dangerous areas of Afghanistan, and 160 plus Canadians lost their lives there. So there's that.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth noting that this government, for all the criticism that Pierre Poilievre has for it, has increased military spending over the past year and had a plan to continue increasing it for the next 10 years.
Yeah, did you hear that? For all the criticism that Pierre gives him, they actually increased their military spending in the past year. What about the past 9 years, or 8 years, or 7 years? When Trudeau didn't do anything. And it's clear, it shows that this guy can't even commit to 2% for NATO, which is something that they've been requesting for how many years now. And then she goes on to say, oh, and then they would have had this plan for the next 10 years. What about the previous 10 years? Like, how are you going on national television, the CBC? I'm not surprised, to be honest, but how would you go on the show and say something that dumb? It just makes no sense for you to shut down what Pierre said with that as your argument, saying, oh, well, for all the criticism that Pierre gives him, he's actually increased spending in the past year. Big whoop-de-doo, that's great, but what about the past, again, 7, 8, 9 years? He's done nothing. And this is the problem with this liberal-leaning media. They just come on and say the most ridiculous things, but they're not the only ones, because according to Trump, Trudeau could not even answer the simple question of, if we didn't support you or, quote unquote, subsidize you in a sense, what would happen to you? Apparently, Trudeau just had no answer. He just could not answer this question.
That's why I told Trudeau when he came down, I said, what would happen if we didn't do it? He said Canada would dissolve. Canada wouldn't be able to function if we didn't take their 20% of our car market. They send us hundreds of thousands of cars. They make a lot of money with that. They send us a lot of other things that we don't need. We don't need their cars, and we don't need the other products. We don't need their milk. We got a lot of milk. We got a lot of everything. And we don't need any of it. So I said to him, well, why are we doing it? He said, I don't really know. He was unable to answer the question, but I can answer it. We're doing it because of habit, and we're doing it because we like our neighbors, and we've been good neighbors. But we can't do it forever, and it's a tremendous amount of money. And why should we have a $200 billion deficit and add on to that many, many other things that we give them in terms of subsidy? And I said, that's okay to have if you're a state. But if you're another country, we don't want to have it. We're not going to have it with European Union either.
Now, I know Trump can be known for over-exaggerating certain things, but if this story is true, it is very sad that the leader of our country could not answer a simple question as to why is it that two different countries that are side by side, connected by the longest border in the world, do trades. Why they sell 20% of our cars to them. Why it is that we're trying to sell them, dairy or lumber. And especially, Trump decided to omit this, but we don't just give them those things like cars, dairy, lumber. The main export, I believe, is energy, oil, gas, electricity. That all crosses our borders to the U.S. And Doug Ford was actually on Fox News, I believe, today, talking about that, saying this is the importance between our two countries and having this fluid relationship.
The premier had this reaction on Jesse Watters' Primetime.
Yeah, what's your problem with the United States absorbing Canada?
Well, first of all, Jesse, I love the U.S. I love Americans. And I get it. You know, President-elect Trump is a real estate tycoon. He's made billions, but that property's not for sale. As simple as that.
Earlier on Fox News' The Five, Waters had said about Canada,
But the fact that they don't want us to take them over makes me want to invade. I want to quench my imperialist thirst.
Ford says he went on Fox to get a message out to Americans.
We're an economic powerhouse in Canada. We're number one trading partner to 27 states. And, you know, we have our energy that we ship down there, be it crude oil and our electricity and our critical minerals. So stay tuned. Let's see what happens here.
Now, when it comes to Doug Ford, a lot of people either love him or hate him. I'm not a huge fan of his, but he's currently the only one who's being somewhat proactive. He's also made the announcement that he's trying to organize meeting up with all the other premiers and trying to get Justin involved with that. But now we have this interim prime minister who's not going to be able to do anything for us. And then we have to wait until March 24th for the prorogation and this leadership race. Like, he really screwed the pooch on this by not just calling an election and allowing somebody to take over so that we have the 4-year mandate and the 4-year mandate with Trump. Now we're going to have to wait, potentially have 2 months of tariffs if Trump decides to put those tariffs on as soon as he gets into power. And who knows what the future is going to look like. More information is coming out every day. Hopefully, Kevin O'Leary, I know he did some talking to Trump, kind of told him maybe hold off until Pierre gets into power. Maybe that'll work. Maybe it won't. Who knows? But as always, I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comment section below what you thought about all this, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.